Here we go with another AFL Fantasy team analysis video for 2025. Today we are heading over to Sydney and checking out some Swans. The biggest beast of all the Swans, in my opinion, is Errol Goulden. Goulden is the modern day wingman. He is just so good at getting ahead of matchups and getting open for marks all across the ground. It really doesn't matter where he starts, he is always open. He racks up disposals and has a fantastic kick to handball ratio of 3-1. He has explosive tendencies and has had some huge scores during the beginning and middle of the year last year. But he slacked off a bit towards the end of the year in the finals and still ended up averaging 108.5. I reckon he'll be right up back to that 110 plus average realm that he averaged the year before, and I think he is going to pick it up hard. He is my midfielder number 2 this year, and I think if he is still there at pick 5 or 6, you have got an absolute steal on your hands in your draft. Next up is Isaac Heaney, the blonde bombshell from the Swans. Finally had the huge year we were all waiting for last year and got that midfield role and plenty of centre bounce attendances, while also being an effective forward as well. He upped his disposal count by almost 10 more per game than any season he'd played in the last 4 years, and he had more centre bounce attendances than any other Swan and had great clearance numbers as well. I do think that there is potential to not quite hit the heights of last year with some of the kids coming up in the midfield unit at the Swans, which we'll talk about in a minute. But it seems like to start 2025, Heaney does have the keys to the midfield and will be looking to lead the Swans back to finals contentions after their grand final loss last year. Projected average of 103 this year though, so very worth a round 2 or 3 selection. Brodie Grundy comes in as my second beast for the Swans, and he is a beast. A great move for him last year, being the big fish ruckman at the Swans. He had a good year playing every single game, with a couple of blemishes along the way, including a score of 53 and a little 44 in there as well. But he backed it up with some big scores in there as well, with a 142, 134 and a 132 as well, and that just reminded us just how good Grundy can be. He's still not that old at 31, and with no immediate competition knocking down the door for the main ruck spot at the Swans, Grundy is still one of the safest rucks out there that you can probably get at a reasonable spot in your drafts this year. So I've got him projected to get just below that 100 average mark by the season's end. On to some breakouts and sleepers now, and one of my favourite Swans for the upcoming year is Angus Sheldrick. He's an inside midfielder by trade with some serious accumulation potential if given the opportunity. He's been injured a bit to start his career and has flown way under the radar in recent years. Averaged well in the VFL last year and would have averaged 99.4 if you disregard the game where he was injured in the first 5 minutes. In 2023, he played a handful of games and at one point was averaging 91 from a 4-game streak before, that's right, he was injured once more. So if he can get a good run with a clean bill of health, look out. He is still very young and a serious breakout contender for whether it's this year, next year, some year soon. Angus Sheldrick is going to make his mark at the Swans, and it's going to be good. Next is the Swans captain Callum Mills, coming in as a defender this year. He had a year to forget last year with an injury which wiped him out until his first game in round 18. He came back into the squad where he didn't look like he quite fit in or he wasn't up to standard, but then he found a little bit of form the last few games where he did get some centre bounce attendances, but then he suffered a pretty annoying hamstring injury which ended his season for good. But anyone who saw Mills back in 2021 and 2022 knows how much potential Mills has. And I think he'll do a lot better this year with a clean bill of health, and if he gets the CBAs again, he could be right up there as a top 10 defender. But at the moment, I'm going in this season with a conservative approach, and I have him as an 86 average. My final breakout for the Swans this year comes in the form of Caden Cleary, a forward option in fantasy this year. Cleary is a Swans Academy product from the 2023 draft. He got a few games under his belt last year and also showed some serious talent in the VFL. He's an accumulator on the inside and the outside in the midfield, and is definitely one to look out for in the future. With forward status this year, he may become a lot more relevant as the season progresses, so there's one to keep an eye on and maybe even chuck on the bench at the end of your drafts. But definitely, if you hear his name throughout the season, get to the FA and pick him up. People would think I'd be talking about Jesse Dotoli at this point, the number one pick in the Swans draft last year, but I've decided to go with mature age recruit Riley Bice as a defender option for the Swans. I think Riley Bice is a genuine chance to play some games and potentially rack up some numbers this year over at the Swans as a rookie. The 24-year-old was a zippy swing defender for Werribee who racked up plenty of marks and had a great kick-to-handball ratio in the VFL. He had some huge games there as well, including a 153, 135, 132, and 131, ended up averaging 91 for that season. Could he find a place in the Swans starting 22 this year? I feel like as a mature age recruit, he is AFL ready, so if there are any injuries or form slumps in defence, I would expect to see Riley Bice step up to the plate this year and actually make a difference as a possible D4 or D5 option in fantasy this year. Finally, one option to just be a bit wary of coming into the season at the Swans, and that is Taylor Adams. Adams is aging in a new era of AFL, and he's brutally been left out of the last two AFL Grand Final squads, once for Collingwood and once for the Swans, back to back. He will get on the park again this year, but I just don't trust his body as he ages, and there are much better prospects in the forward stocks in fantasy. Not only that, but the Swans are going through their generational shift, and it feels like he could be on the cusp of not even being in the squad at some points this year. So definitely one to keep an eye on, and don't pull the trigger on too early on draft day. So there you have it, a couple of Sydney Swans to look out for on your draft. I hope I've given you some insight with this video and a couple of Swans to keep an eye on your special day. But if you like this video and found it insightful in any way, please like and subscribe and follow me on social media. And yeah, look out for the next one. We're going to get into the West Coast Eagles next, and that's an interesting one to say the least. So tune in for that. We'll see you next time.